Hey guys, today I have had internal debates. What? Yeah, I've been thinking about. Oh, wait, did I have enough space on my phone? Probably, hopefully. Well, if it cuts out, yeah, okay. So, I have been thinking for hours now, because I woke up at 6 and it's now 8, so it's 2 hours now. And I've been like constantly thinking about like the difference between happiness and joy, and I've been trying to like realize what's the differences, what's the similarities, and like what do I think about the different or those two emotions. And I find happiness and joy to be kind of different in the way that um yeah, so I haven't really come up with any good connections that I can actually explain very easily. So this is gonna be a part of the process of finding out what I think of when I think about happiness versus joy, or the differences and the similarities. Um, and what I've realized is that a lot of like people chase joy. Now I'm gonna say that uh all I'm talking about in these videos is from like my own perspective and how I interpret other people to be. So this is more like a reflection of me than a reflection of others, because this is how I view the world, not how the world is. And like I'm gonna tell you like this is how the world works, because this is how I see the world and how I when someone is doing stuff certain ways, this is how I interpret that. And the way I interpret a lot of people who are in, oh, a lot of people, it seems at least, that a lot of people aren't very happy. And instead of seeking like long term happiness, they like try to surround themselves with like short term joy, right? Like if you're like constantly busy and like you're working overtime all the time and you're like miserable, and then you like save up to go to like go on a vacation to like some tropical place or whatever your taste is in where you want to treat yourself. And I at least hear a lot of people like having a mind, or I some of the people that I've ran into and like talked with or like experienced or been around, I guess, they've been like thinking that, okay, I'm gonna be happy after I get that vacation. But I feel like uh, the vacation isn't gonna bring happiness, but it's gonna bring joy. And the difference is, I feel like when you have joy, for example, it often quickly fades away and it doesn't leave any like lasting impact. Like for example, um if you uh if you get if you buy an item, right? It's often, or at least from my view or what I've seen or felt, um whenever I buy something and I feel like or when I used to buy stuff and I got those feelings of like, yo, I got this new thing, oh my god, it's so cool, right? Those feelings would fade away, and it would be like my feelings wouldn't like after I had bought the item, it wouldn't stick around, like the feeling wouldn't stick around. And I feel like that is an example of joy. But for example, when I bought my GPU, for example, my graphics card, for those who don't understand those three letters that I said there, the graphics card is a thing that like your computer has to compute graphics, right? It like calculates the graphics. And I used to have a relative, like compared to what I see people starting Blender with every now and then, like people starting with equipment from like the 90s, not actually, but like really like low end laptops like Chromebooks and stuff. And compared to a Chromebook, it's like I had a 1060 with a 3 GB VRAM. For those who don't know what that means, it doesn't really matter. Um, but yeah, I did have sort of a mid-range card. It wasn't really mid-range anymore when I bought my new one, because I bought the 3090 because I was tired of the slow render times, because render times are so annoying. And I figured, and also I was so tired of having 3 GB of VRAM. Like basically, for those who don't know what that means, it basically means how much your graphic card can remember. Like for example, textures and stuff. Like if you have uh 4K textures, you need a lot of VRAM. If you have 8K textures, oh, you need even more VRAM. And I tried making more and more realistic scenes in Blender, and my VRAM just there was not enough. Like my PC couldn't render because wasn't enough memory on my graphics card to like render more than like 3 items or something. And like 3 object high quality objects at a time. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I have some money in my savings account, and I'm gonna invest that into a graphics card, a better graphics card. And I was thinking about getting the 3060 for a long time, like with the not the 8 GB VRAM version, but the 12 GB version, because I had realized like, okay, if I buy the cheaper one, no wait, wasn't the 12 one a little bit cheaper? I don't know if it was, because it was like the TI, the 3060 Ti had 8 GB, and then the updated version of the 3060 had 12. I don't know. I was like looking at the graphics card, being like, okay, I'm gonna buy something, like get an upgrade, and then like just like not that much of an upgrade. It's still like a lot more modern, and the software is probably like the software is probably better, and the hardware is also better. Um, but I after a while, because I hadn't bought one in like a year, or I started thinking, and then I was like, nah, I'm gonna save my money instead. And then like a year later, when the 40 series was getting announced, no, yeah, yeah, I think when the 40 series was getting announced, I bought my 3090 for like 50% off on like the Norwegian version of eBay. It was still like $130. No, it was still, oh no, it was still $1,300. So $1,300. It was still pretty expensive for what I had access to. Like I didn't have like a salary. I didn't like I had a job, but I was an unpaid intern, and it was a ton of money for me at the age that I was. which was, I don't remember if it was at 18, like when I was 18 or 19, but it doesn't matter. It's like a year. One of, like, either I was 18 or 19. But anyway, I bought the thing, and I didn't really have the same like vibe as like, oh my god, I got this new graphics card. Oh my god, it's gonna. I did have that for some time, like a short amount of time, but it faded. But I didn't feel like it was a waste of money, because the joy faded away, but the happiness of like having, because when I when I the first time I rendered, I was like, okay, I'm gonna time how fast it takes for my older graphics card to render, and then I'm gonna like see how fast it was, or how fast it gets when I upgrade. And I couldn't, it might have taken like 30 seconds to a minute to render one frame on my old GPU on a relatively basic scene, like very basic scene. Um, and then after I'd changed the settings, like to enable optics, which is a denoiser, which basically takes a noisy image and makes it smoother, so it's not just a bunch of like wacky pixels everywhere, like grain and stuff. And yeah, it makes it prettier. And after I'd enabled everything, my render time went from 30 seconds ish to a minute down to like 1 second. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it took like, it literally, I pressed the button to enable viewport rendering, and it was already rendered basically. And I was like, huh? And it was so insane, like the difference. But like, it sounds like, okay, it's just 1 second, but that's not just one. It's not just 1 second, because anytime I would make one change, I would need, like, if I wanted to see what the change did to my model, I would, like, if I'm messing around with materials and stuff, I would need to wait 30 seconds to a minute to see just what the slider did. Like, if I changed the slider, I would need to wait a minute to see exactly what that slider did. And if I didn't like the change, I would have to wait another minute to see for another change. And then I would have to wait another minute. And it's not like, a minute isn't that long, but when you have to wait for something, like when you have to like stare at the clock for 1 minute, for 1 minute, it's hell, right? And that's kind of, it makes it makes sitting at your desk so much more boring. And for someone like me who has ADHD and autism, uh, stopping and continuing work like that, it just drains my energy so much. And after I had a new graphics card, I didn't need to wait. I could, like, after some optimizing of Blender, like the how Blender X. If you don't understand what Cycles X. If you don't understand what that means, it's basically they rewrote the code for the rendering engine, the Cycles and rendering engine. It's a path tracer, which means, if you don't understand what a path tracer is, it's essentially like ray tracing in video games, but instead of like faking the ray tracing as much as possible, it's like actual ray tracing. Because in games, like, ray tracing still takes so much power to compute. So anywhere you don't need to compute it to get results that look like it, you want to use those other methods. You don't want to use ray tracing where you can fake it. Or if you optimize, if you want to optimize, that's kind of how you optimize. You don't like, yeah. It's kind of like having a it's kind of like having a really beefy engine on a boat, and it guzzles up so much fuel, and you only need to like move a few meters, right? And you don't need to deck the tiny boat with that huge diesel guzzling engine. You can like paddle even just the few meters, and yeah, so you kind of just, some games are like, they say fuck you optimizing, I'm gonna do other things, I'm gonna make it, I don't care, I'm gonna fuck those low end users because fuck you, spend billions of spend thousands of dollars on this one component that your PC needs to like function, to play a game nowadays. Which makes it less accessible to people. But then I am not here to explain that. But what I am here to explain, that I've kind of been touring off, I guess it's a good description of what I like, what I see. Yeah, 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 it's kind of a good example of happiness versus joy, because I did feel pretty happy. No, I did feel pretty joyful when I realized like how much it changes everything about Blender and how I use Blender. Because I used to use Blender like a tool kind of to make stuff that I wanted, and after I upgraded my GPU, it became a game. Right, I didn't need to wait for stuff anymore. It happened almost instantaneously. Like I I can mentally block out 1 or 2 seconds of like looking at the rendering happening, but 1 minute, that's enough time to zone out and start thinking about something completely different before I need to snap out of that thought again. And that snapping out of the thought, like changing direction in path, no, in mine, in like changing directions or changing tasks is really difficult because, or for me, uh, and it's kind of like I'm a huge boulder that it's falling down a hill, and if you suddenly get a long stretch of flat ground, it's so hard to get the ball moving again if it gets stuck on the plateau. But when you start, like when you have used like a ton of energy to like start pushing the ball, it does not want to stop, right? It just keeps going. If there's a city down the hill, that city is gonna get crushed by whatever, like the huge boulder that's flying down there. And some people, like uh some fields or some work jobs, I guess, they have, like for example, when I worked at the 3D studio thing that I was at before, you kind of had to not be a ball like that. You needed to be a tiny pebble, like going tiny steps, like skipping like tiny steps and changing at a dime. And like, I don't know, you needed to be very adaptable. Like, okay, we're not gonna do this, we're gonna focus on this. Okay, this project fell through, we gotta wrap up on this, and we gotta uh, get on to this other work. And after lunch we're gonna go from that task or that project to this project, and you needed to change so much, like all the time. And I couldn't, right? There were days where literally I came to work, I had an idea of how I wanted to do my work and like how I wanted to continue the project that I started the day before. Uh, and then they tell me like, okay, no, we're gonna drop that. We're gonna go to another. We're gonna stop this project because they stopped messaging us, or they didn't have the budget, or whatever reason. They would tell me like, okay, you're gonna work on this instead. And for the entire day, I couldn't do anything. Like stuff that I I can do in seconds without thinking, right? I can export a model with 3 button presses, right? I can I can model a I can model a lot of things in 5 minutes, but I couldn't do anything other than moving my mouse around. Like I could maybe even I might not even have been able to move my mouse around because I was trying to mentally like stop the ball from rolling down the hill. But none of the other people could understand that struggle because they might have had the same struggles, and they might have uh, been forced to just conform themselves. So they didn't really respect my problems, and they saw it as weakness instead of uh, a misused strong side. Because it's definitely a weak point, or it's definitely a weakness. I mean, it's definitely a weakness if you're in a position where you need to uh, constantly be on your toes and like move on your toes. That's a reference to the one person watching this. Um, but yeah, if you are in a place where you need to be on your toes and you need to like change directions all the time, being that boulder, like the huge boulder, is a really huge weakness, like a super uh, bad thing to have. But when you're in a line of work where you're allowed to be that ball, that huge ball, it's so like it's such a huge benefit. Like the amount of work I can get done when I'm allowed to have the ball rolling and I'm not like uh having to like stop the ball and like restart the ball every now and then, like every hour. Like the amount of work I can get done, it's like insane. I can I like the people at work, they would go like, "Bro, how are you this fast?" And then like at some points like, "How are you this fucking slow, bro? You said you would spend 10 minutes on this thing. It's been 3 days since you said that, and you haven't started. Like, bro, what the fuck?" And then like I get a project that I get to keep a task that I'm like good at, and like I don't get disturbed and stuff. And they're like, "What the fuck? How do you do this so quickly? And like, how can you like press those buttons that fast and stuff like that?" Because I'm not trying to stop the ball, and I'm not trying to start the ball. I've already started the ball before I got to work. Like I'm just like I'm laying here right now. I'm just, instead of thinking like, "Oh, I gotta get to the bus," I'm sitting here. I'm laying here and like thinking, okay, if I make those things, like if I make the house red, and then I can make like the pavement asphalt, and then I like thinking about how I need to achieve, or what I need to do. Like, okay, I need to write down these things, and I need to do this in Blender, I need to do this in Unreal, and then I like figuring out what I want to do or how I'm gonna do it. And then when I get to work and they're not like, yo, we're gonna change that thing, that thing you spent 2 hours like thinking about before you came to work. Yeah, fuck those 2 hours. You're gonna have to just cry, I guess. And you're gonna have to do this other thing, and we're gonna expect you to do it by lunch. By lunch, you will have this finished. And I'm like, but I was so ready. I was so fucking ready for that thing. What the fuck do you mean they didn't have the budget? What the fuck did you mean they ghosted us? What the fuck? Like, and it doesn't just take a lot of energy, it just like it also takes a lot of like emotion, the emotional burden. Like it's not to many people it will be like, okay, it's just a task, but it feels so bad when it happens, because it's not just I'm not able to work, or I'm not able to, no, it's also not just I'm not able to change on a dime. It's also that I feel so defeated whenever it happens, right? I feel so like so bad about myself because I'm not able to do what they're telling me to do. And whenever I've convinced myself, like, okay, now I'm ready for it, now I'm ready to do what they're telling me to do, they change their mind, right? Everyone changes their mind because they realize, like, oh shit, we don't have the budget for this. Oh, we don't really want that. We don't want this. We didn't want orange trees. We wanted green trees. That's actually a reference to something, but I'm not gonna, I don't think I can actually say what it was. But yeah, that happened, and like people changing their mind. That's also why I'm avoiding commissioned artworks. Like, I don't want to commission stuff because people will be like, oh, I don't want it that way, I wanted this instead. I think at least, like, from the it might be less of a problem when you have less money on the table, right? If someone is spending millions of dollars, I can understand why you would be upset if it wasn't exactly like you wanted, because it's a huge bunch of money. But if it's like a few $100s, I don't think someone would be too unhappy, I guess. So it might be the perspective of like the the amount of value they put behind the work. Um and I did not feel like I exceeded in that situation of being like, okay, I need to do all of this stuff, and I I'm trying to do it. I don't feel like I'm getting it. Like I don't like. I didn't feel like I was getting closer to getting a system of doing stuff. It just felt like I was always like under underperforming, and like I was not being used in the way that my brain naturally likes to do things. And I felt like anytime I would say that I could do like I can't do it, like I'm really bad at doing it this way, but I could do it this way, and I'm saying like, that's too bad because you gotta do it this way. This is just how the industry is, and like, yeah, okay, I guess, okay, and like me trying to make sense of like, okay, this is how the industry is, and this is just how I need to be. I just gotta be this way, I guess. And yeah, I tried figuring out systems of getting it to work, but I couldn't, because I don't know. It's it it takes so much more energy to it's so much more energy wasted and so much more productivity wasted because of having to do it a specific way instead of seeing how my brain responds to a certain doing it stuff a certain way, and seeing like, okay, instead of brute forcing this problem, I'm gonna like reflect on it, and I'm gonna look where like there's water leaking, right? Because if you're looking at it in a sense of like a series of pipes, if you see a whole bunch of pipes just leaking, and at the end where you need the water to go, it's too little water, and you, instead of tightening up the or fixing the pipes, instead of that, instead of like fixing the pipe, you just increase the water pressure overall. It's not, it might not, the water might make it to the end. It might be very little water making it to the end, and you're like, all the water that's splashing out of the pipes on the way, that's all just wasted. And you could kind of think of the way that I worked at that studio as having like a pipeline with tons of holes, and instead of being allowed to like go and inspect the pipe and uh, like having the time and being allowed to inspect the pipe and fixing, like having the freedom and the tools to cover up those holes, right? If like if since I was not no I wasn't allowed to fix up those holes, I was only allowed to change the water pressure, right? Like my entire my yeah, I was only allowed to change the water pressure, but it didn't really, I don't know, it felt, I could feel all the water that was flowing out of the side of the pipes, but not the water coming out at the end. Or the water coming out of the end was the only visible part to the people at my office, or at the office, and they couldn't see the leaking pipes. They could only see the the outcome, right? They didn't see the all the pipes in my head like exploding and like uh, being over uh, pressured or whatever. And so they, instead of uh instead of giving me tasks that I was interested in, they saw like, okay, this guy can't really take that much, I guess, or we guess, and so we're gonna give him less interesting, like less necessary tasks, like things in the background and stuff, like stuff that isn't really stuff that no one else wants to do, like the typical intern stuff. And so I was given a lot of tasks that were like, do this one thing and like do it. We don't care because it probably will get like done again by someone else. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It felt like everything that I was doing was completely unnecessary, and the amount of energy that I was spending on doing nothing, uh, I don't know. I didn't feel like it wasn't like I didn't see the value in it. So I kind of got depressed and stuff. I don't think I was actually depressed, but I got more and more like stressed out, and I tried to cope with different ways and methods, but nothing really helped. And I guess what I'm taking from this, like the joy would be like, if no, I think um my job didn't really it brought me some joys, but it kind of it wasn't that I was not happy. It was more that the job was not allowing me to be happy, if that makes sense. The amount of energy I was using on trying to, because I thought of me having problems with being able to, like, not being able to do the things that I needed to do as a issue of skill, like a skill issue. I thought I needed to learn more to get better, and when I got better, I would be able to get the work done. But I realized, like, when I after I got fired, and I've reflected on like a lot of things a lot more, because now I have time to reflect. Now I have the reason to reflect, because I don't want to end up in the same position where I'm just like brute forcing everything, and I don't feel like I am able to do anything, because it's, yeah, I don't want to I don't want to end up in a situation where my brain is a problem, like the way my brain naturally is wired. If that's a problem, I don't want to be where that way of thinking is a problem, right? And no matter how prestigious or cool or interesting the work is, it's not worth feeling worthless, even if other people think like, oh shit, it's so cool that you have an Emmy. I don't have an Emmy, but I was nominated for 2 Emmys, and I'm kind of happy that we didn't win. I wasn't personally like uh, nominated. I was part of the work. Yeah, like I was doing work on the things that were nominated for Emmys, and I would not, like, I wouldn't be proud of having an Emmy. I would be compensating my lack of self-worth with telling people that I had an Emmy, right? I wouldn't say like to me, I would never say to myself like, oh, I have an Emmy. Oh, I'm so cool because I have an Emmy. Like, it would be trying to get other people to see value in me because I didn't see value in myself. And one way to do that is to like achieve prestigious awards or prestigious status things, like having a lot of money, having a lot of followers, having a lot of freedom or whatever, or whatever you like, having the dream job, or any, like, wanting to, like, needing to have other people appreciate you is often a sign that you don't appreciate yourself. Because if you need others to approve of you, and anytime someone doesn't approve of you, and you feel like shit, that could be a result of like being insecure. And if you don't see it as like, okay, this might be insecurity, and you only think of it as like, no, I'm a bad person, and like you give into those insecurities, or you try to avoid thinking about the insecurities, like, I don't have an insecurity about this. No, those that's like for stupid people. Stupid people have insecurities, and that's kind of a bad way of, or that's kind of a counterintuitive way of thinking of it, because everyone has insecurities. Everyone has varying degrees of insecurities as well, and kind of like thinking that you don't have them is not really helpful, and thinking that you're too insecure is also kind of in unhelpful maybe. What I've found is like realizing my insecurities and allowing them to like show themselves to me, so I can see, okay, what is the insecurity, like why am I insecure about this, why do I feel this way about uh, certain things, like for example, um, why do I spend so much time uh, working on projects, or why do I spend so much energy trying to uh, like convince myself, or find like, how, why do I spend so much time trying to fit in, basically, right? Why do I spend so much time trying to be normal when my brain isn't, right? And it's because I'm insecure, like I've been very insecure about, I'm pretty sure I'm still, like, I'm never going to eradicate all insecurities, so I'm definitely still insecure about the same things that I was before, but I'm realizing, um like, the insecurities don't have to dictate my life as much as I was letting them do before. Like, now I see that, okay, it's very valuable being aware of my insecurities and seeing where they limit me and being able to push through them if I want to. And sometimes insecurities might seem like, or it might feel like you don't like, no, uh, it might seem like you want to keep them, because insecurities are a result of, I mean, what I find insecurities to be, it's a result um of it can be a result of doing stuff, or doing something a certain way, and being uh well, that's more how it's formed. This insecurities can be formed by a behavior that someone else, or yeah, someone tells you, or someone makes you aware that, like, this is a bad way of doing things, this is a bad way of being, right? Like, some people seem to think like attention seeking, that's a bad thing, right? And people should be uh, ashamed if they're trying to seek attention. But why is why do some people seek attention, right? Like, it's often seen as an annoyance. Oh, it's so annoying when people seek attention, and it's a bad thing, right? But why do people seek attention? Like, that's kind of more important than, it is more important to ask why someone seeks attention, or why oneself, because it's more often is more helpful to ask it yourself, like, why do I seek attention, than others asking you. Because if someone else asks you and you haven't reflected on it, it can feel very bad, it can feel like aggressive, or like a personal attack, and you might get like really defensive and shit, because your ego is trying to defend itself. And yeah, because it doesn't feel good when someone else points out your mistakes, and it might not feel very good in the beginning when you're starting to like realize your mistakes, or realizing your insecurities and trying to work on them. And often I see a lot of people who get into like self-help sides of social media and stuff, where like self-help is where they're trying to like learn self-help and stuff, and then instead of reflecting on themselves, they now see a variable that they weren't able to see, and they are able to like see other people's problems more, or like seeing why someone a way does a thing a certain way. Like for example, seeing like, okay, you are attention seeking and that's a problem, and you're doing it because of this and that, and like attacking people, instead of seeing like, instead of the actual point of self-help, of helping yourself, right? Like in realizing your own faults and your own insecurities, and learning to accept them, and learning to move past them and stuff like that. And it's so easy. I've even been in that. Like I think everyone who goes down that path, it's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect. I feel like you start self-help and what? Okay, I thought I saw some like a creature move in the corner of my room. What the fuck? That was kind of spooky. I don't know. It was probably just an eye floaty thingy. But yeah. Yeah. The important parts of self improvement is looking inwards, not outwards. But it's often hard to look inwards because we're often social media is making it very easy to look outwards, right? Looking at other people, what they have and what you don't have compared to them, and seeing like, oh shit, I don't have $1 billion. What? I'm useless to society. This person is so happy because they have so much money, and they smile in their social media posts, and they have a happy family, and like you only see the good parts. You don't see those billionaires being sad about having too much money and like having no purpose or whatever. You only see like, oh yeah, they have like mansions and stuff. And why do they have mansions? Well, it might be because they like having mansions, but it might also be them trying to fulfill the hole that they feel, right? Fill up the hole that they have from not feeling happy about themselves, and the fact that they have so much money that they can buy everything. Um, they don't, if they don't see like, okay, money doesn't really buy, can't buy all types of happiness. It can, of course, give you some happiness, like not having to stress about paying rent, not having to stress about paying for food, like that stuff. That's paying for happiness, right? If you don't have food, it can be a really large stress inducer, right? It can be very bad for both your physical and mental health. um but when you don't realize that, when you only see it as like, okay, if I earn a lot of money, I can buy happiness, I can buy all the things that I want, and then if you end up buying all those things, you realize that, oh shit, okay, it gave me happiness, but now I'm sad again because it wasn't that fun. Okay, I'm just gonna buy even more stuff. That's the issue here. I need to buy even more stuff. I have all this money. I just need to buy more stuff because it gave me happiness that one time. So I'm just gonna buy more and more stuff, right? Okay, yeah, that's the way I get happiness, and that's where the overlap between happiness and joy is so blurred, because a lot of people seek happiness, but they chase enjoyment, or they chase joy, right? They seek happiness but chase joy, and by chasing joy you don't allow yourself to build happiness, because joy is more, I feel joy is more of a chase, or you go out of your way to get happiness, while hap no, you go out of your way to get joy. Like you take a vacation, you buy an item, you uh, do drugs, I guess. Whatever you do to get that fix, maybe open up Instagram, scroll, doom scroll for a day. Um, it might give you joy in the beginning, but then having like the constant joy makes everything else seem depressing, because you will like I don't think that you get less joy from scrolling constantly. It's more that every other emotion. No, I think that joy, when you get too much of joy for too much time, right? It everything else seems like it seems worse. I feel, right, and that's kind of why I think of joy as a quickly induced and quickly fading away emotion, while happiness is kind of a slow moving ball that you just that you keep. It's not, you don't do one change and then the ball is suddenly rolling. You're doing many changes to get the ball, to keep the ball running, and then you do changes to keep the ball running, and then you allow stuff uh, instead of, yeah, well, instead of trying to avoid problems, you allow problems to happen, and then you see through them and you work on improving stuff. And then when, yeah, because if you see problems like a roadblock, right, it stops everything. And uh, like problems should be avoided type mindset, it can be hard to achieve happiness, because happiness does not, it doesn't stay by itself, right? You need to, or what I'm, the way I understand it, happiness is something you make room for. It's not something that will happen naturally. It doesn't necessarily happen naturally. It can happen naturally if you have the room for it, if you allow the space for happiness to occur. But if you don't allow happiness to occur because you're chasing joy, right? If you don't allow yourself to see happiness in smaller things or bigger things, and you only look to, and you only seek those intense moments, those short intense moments of a high, right? It gets addicting, just like a drug and caffeine, and like any thing that happens like quickly, like you get a strong feeling instantly or quickly. The brain really likes those things because it feels good, but then when you get used to those things, the 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 brain needs more and more. The brain needs stronger and stronger stimuli to not have it become dull, right? Joy works by being spikes. When you have joy over longer periods of times, or period of time, it doesn't feel very joyful anymore. Feels it doesn't feel sad. Maybe everything else might seem sad, because yeah, I don't know. If you're gambling, right, it might feel very like exciting and enjoyable the first times, but when you get addicted to gambling, you don't feel joy from it anymore. You might feel the joy, but your brain adapts and mutes it because it's kind of flatlining. Even though it's flatlining up here, it's still flatlining, and the the power of joy is when it goes up and down, right? You have moments of sadness to balance out the moments of joy. And yeah, now that I've talked about joy and like how I find joy, I can talk about more like about what I feel happiness is. Because happiness, I've said that like happiness is more slow moving and like needs more setup. Uh, but when it when you're uh, when you allow yourself to be happy instead of um, trying to always be happy or always be joyful, allowing yourself to go down to the pits of like the pits of despair and like experiencing lows is a part of being happy. Because if you always feel happy, you will lose the good feeling about being happy, right? Happiness will be mundane and boring, and I feel like happiness is more boring than joy, but it's a comfortable boring, if that makes sense. It's not boring in the sense of like, oh, I hate this feeling. It's more like, oh, I like this feeling, but it's not it's not a amazing feeling. It's more like, oh, I'm so happy that I have food on the I can eat every day, right? I don't need to stress about uh surviving. I'm also happy about the ability to create art, and I'm happy that I'm able to like I'm living in a very safe country with so many like social security things. Like it's so safe, and if I seem no if I think of happiness as a thing that I always need to strive for, it won't happen naturally. It will be forced, and forced happiness does not feel as good as natural happiness. And natural happiness doesn't come every day. It comes every now and then. But it also you can do measures like like bigger measures to ensure that the chance of happiness, like the overall happiness, not just the one day you're happy, you're very happy, because that borders into like joy, more of like joy, and happiness is more those like the a good year, right? Or a good month, or like it's not one day of happiness. it's it's like you have food on the table for the whole year, right? That's a good year. And happiness is also I'm realizing stuff now about happiness. Like happiness is often overlooked because it's such a low footprint. Like it has such a small footprint because when people say happiness is in the small things, I don't know if anyone says that, but I had the brain thought right now that like there are many small things that build up to a sense of happiness. Like if you have no feeling of security, like no sense of security, it's harder to be happy because you have so many other more stronger emotions overpowering happiness. Happiness is kind of like the sushi of emotions. It tastes very little. Some people, well, sushi, some people dislike, well, some people seem to dislike happiness also, because some people, uh, that actually might make sense, because some people, yeah, some people see like the boringness, the mundaneness of happiness as like, oh, it's so boring. Nothing happens, right? But it's like the fact that nothing bad or the fact that uh I don't know. It's not. I don't think of it as like being uh ungrateful, because ungrateful is kind of different. I mean, ungratefulness is kind of a lack of perspective in some cases. Like if you've only lived with luxury, complete luxury, and then you're given something that's not luxurious, you might go like, "What the fuck? I don't want this. Get that shit away." But if you've lived in poverty and you like your entire life has been poverty and like you've seen horrible things, and then you get like a thing, like even just a bread, right? A loaf of bread that might mean so much to you. And I think like gratefulness or ungratefulness has more about perspective, being able to see the perspective, or yeah, having perspective instead of being a good or a bad person. Because if you have only lived with luxury in your entire life and you never experience any, like I don't consider myself unlucky. I consider myself very lucky. Like I live in a country where uh, I have like even like I know people in this country, they are unhappy about things, and I definitely have things that I'm not always happy. There are of course times like I am human. I do still feel every emotion, right? um like people, I used to think like autistic people don't feel emotions, but it's more, I've realized more that it's kind of more cloudy to us on the spectrum. It's kind of like when a normal person feels happy, they can think like, okay, I feel happy now, or I'm happy. And then me, I'm like, okay, I feel this certain way. What it this is these are the outcomes of this emotion, and this is how it was induced. Okay, what emotion is this? Is this a good emotion or is this a bad emotion? And then over time of like reflecting over each emotion, I've realized like, oh shit, okay, this means that, and that means this, right? It might seem like a waste of time explaining all of this stuff, like talking about the difference between joy and happiness, because to neurotypical people, there might be a difference like naturally, or there might not be any difference at all. Like they might be the same thing, or they might be completely different by nature. Like they might see joy as completely different to happiness, but I see all emotions as kind of like not distinct things. I see them as like a soup, and I need to figure out which kind of ingredients are in the soup and what it tastes like before I can understand what the name of the soup is. I can't hear the soup name, or the name of the soup, and think like, okay, this is that, or this tastes like that. This, I don't remember the flavor. I don't remember the ingredients. If someone tells me the name of a soup, like an emotion, if someone tells me the name of an emotion, like happiness. I don't remember how it feels. I don't remember how I get it always. Sometimes I know, like I learn habits that bring up my happiness over time. It's not, and I also, of course, know of stuff that gives me joy, like certain, like it's a lot easier to think of what gives you, or notice what gives you joy than what gives you happiness, because joy is kind of like, whoa, yo, that new exciting thing, oh my god, oh, I feel so good. But the happiness is kind of like, oh yeah, I'm happy that that I uh, it, happiness is kind of like the thing you have left when the joy fades away. It's less prominent, but it's still there. And if you aren't if you're not uh, going out of your way to see or notice the happiness that you have left, it's it's very often overlooked by the lack of joy that you have, like the joy that you have lost, right? When you buy that item and you feel that excited, and it fades away. If you don't notice, like, okay, this item actually brings me happiness because I get to, I use it for this and this purpose, and it's not a meaningless item. It actually gives me happiness. It's not as exciting as it once was, but I can see the happiness that it brings me, right? You need to kind of look. It's kind of a, I mean, emotions are kind of a puzzle game. You gotta look for the pieces, and you gotta see each piece and like, okay, is this, where is this supposed to go? Okay, this is supposed to go there, and like, but it's also kind of like always changing. Like each puzzle piece is changing always, because you're always changing as a person. You're learning new things. You're learning, uh, um, you're getting new perspectives. And I feel like if you're not doing that, if you're not learning and you're not taking in new perspectives and you're not open to like different experiences than what you're used to, it can often limit your experiences as a human. Like your happiness might, you might feel less happy because your limited view on stuff makes it seem like the joy that the enjoy no the happiness that you have is a problem, or isn't valuable, or isn't necessary to keep thinking about, because you might see it as like, okay, it will just always be there because it feels so mundane, right? It's the small things that when you take away, you will notice like a worse thing, or like a worse mentality overall. It's not something that you take away and they're like, okay, I don't care about that thing. It's kind of like if you have food on the table all like through your entire life, never having to go hungry, and then you go a year without having food security, right? You will feel, if you don't if you didn't appreciate, yeah, I guess appreciation is, yeah, I mean, appreciation could be one of the way, like one of your one of what could be one way to achieve happiness, appreciating what you have. And that often sounds like bullshit to many people, because it's like, I don't care if I need to appreciate this thing. It's annoying, and I don't like this thing. And then that could also be perspective, because if you see a thing as like, okay, this is just how normal, how this works, and then you take it for granted, right? You don't have the perspective to see that, oh, it could be worse by taking away that thing that I take for granted. And uh, now, of course, I'm not gonna sit here and I'm not gonna lay here and say like, oh, uh, I am so much better uh, at appreciating stuff than everyone else, and like I'm more grateful than everyone else, because I have moments. I know that, like, I'm very aware that I have moments where I'm not appreciative of the stuff that I have, and that also like the 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 ungratefulness being a lack of perspective is also why yeah, it's also why I believe that ungratefulness is a lack of perspective and not being a bad person, because we often like I hear people saying or thinking like, or whenever someone is ungrateful, we think of them as like bad people, or like, oh my god, they're so ungrateful, how dare them. But it's more, can you really fault someone for not having enough perspective to understand something? Because I don't see a lack of perspective as a problem. I see it as a result, right? It's a result. It's not a problem. It's not a limiter. The limit isn't your lack of perspective. It is the lack of putting yourself in situation where you can experience those perspectives and build perspective that, like, you can see the things that you have, and like, oh shit, okay, I do enjoy these things that I have, like, even if it's like a tiny thing, like, oh, I enjoy having a dishwasher, right? It might not be exciting to have a dishwasher, but then, like, you might think like, oh, it's so annoying to use this dishwasher because the button layout is so bad, right? You might focus, it's so easy to focus on problems with stuff, or problems. I guess humans are naturally accustomed to looking at problems because we like problem solving, right? That's kind of a very general thing. There are people who don't like problem solving, or maybe they like certain types of problem solving but hate other types of problem solving, right? Some people like puzzle games, some people hate puzzle games. um but the brain, I believe that the brain likes solving problems, or is very good at finding problems, and your ability to solve those problems is, like, yeah, I guess that's a different metric for a different day, I guess. Or a different episode, different Yaptime episode, whatever. But yeah, but have, like, seeing the faults in what you have, but seeing the joy, like, not the joy, the happiness that it brings you, like the peace of mind of not having to do the dishes every day or whenever you do it, like having the freedom of just putting your plates into a machine and putting like either a tab of soap or like a powder into a hole, even if the button layout is like really annoying, and like, oh, every time I try to press this button I have to press it twice, like, it's the brain is incredibly good at finding problems everywhere, and it's really bad at noticing happiness, is what I've realized. Like, it's so bad at realizing where you are happy, or when you're like how you're actually happy, instead of just pure joy, because pure joy is like cocaine. It's like, whoa, oh my god, it's so cool. And happiness, it's what you don't notice at first, but then when you take it away, kind of, you notice it more. um Kind of like how people explain like exes and stuff. when you when you I don't know, I don't think I've been in a relationship that I actually have found that much meaning behind, that I've like felt like I've really lost someone, because I haven't really been in a relationship. I think the longest relationship I've been in has been like 2 months at once, like in one go. So I've not really been in a relationship, because I don't think 2 months is enough time to really get to know someone, and I don't think you can be you I don't think you're really in a relationship until you start to getting to know someone in a deeper way. Like surface level knowing someone doesn't it doesn't seem like a relationship to me, but it might be to someone. It depends on the perspective, I guess. But I yeah, some people say that, like, oh, I loved that person and I didn't realize before it was over. And that is um kind of like a yeah, that could be a good example of happiness, because you might see a lot of problems in the person, like, oh, they do this and this and that annoys me, and like they might not respond to my texts instantly, and they might not do they might not like the things that I like, or they might do things in ways that are annoying to me. And uh, and focusing on those things and not giving space for your brain to acknowledge the things that you actually like about them, uh like you're not you're not allowing your brain to feel happy. You're allowing your brain to find the problems, and it's not healthy to cover up all the problems either, because some problems, one thing that I've realized about, like, quote unquote, like problems, um is that for an outsider, like for someone like me looking at someone, I can see someone's behavior as a problem, right? Something that I think, okay, this is a problem. Like they're seeking attention, and that's a problem. And that might be a problem because they're like, it might seem like a problem to me because they're spending so much effort on like getting other people to approve them. Uh, but to them, to the person doing that, like seeking that attention, that might be a solution to, like that might be their solution to another problem, like for example being insecure about their value as a person, right? Instead of uh, confronting that, because to them the problem isn't this seeking the attention, it's the problem is the feeling, like the insecurity of not being good enough. uh, and their solution to that problem is seeking attention, right? So it's easy to think like, okay, people need to stop being uh, people need to like stop being attention seeking and stuff, but that's a solution to those people who do it. It's a solution to their insecurities. And so I've seen like I've realized like people don't really have problems, they have internal solutions for their own problems. And so I can't see, like, if I'm not able to see their side of the story, I shouldn't be able to point at their solution and say that that's the problem, because to them it's not the problem. And if I tell that person like, hey, you need to stop doing that because that's the problem, and I'm not seeing the problem that they see, right? If I only see their solution as the problem and they see their solution and they see the thing that I'm pointing out as their solution, that isn't helpful. That's gonna mostly lead to more insecurities, which then will lead to more needing newer solutions, and those solutions look like problems from the outside, but they're always internal solutions. And therefore, instead of pointing at someone and saying like, you have this problem, you need to stop doing that and start doing this instead, it's I found more success of doing like more success, personal success, like in happiness or like understanding people, by instead of seeing someone else doing something weird or like doing a quote unquote problem or having a quote unquote problem, and seeing it as like, okay, they act this way, and I'm frustrated because I apparently do the same things. And the reason I feel bad about this, like when I the reason I feel bad when I see a person acting this way is because it shows me how I act from an external view, right? I get to see from a different perspective how I act. And it can feel like they're trying to make fun of me, like, oh my god, this is how stupid you look when you do these things. But when you realize, or when I realized that, like, oh shit, okay, it's not, they're not like, it's not God trying to explain how I seem to others or what I look like when I do certain things. um it is me seeing myself in that person and being unhappy with myself, and then seeing that other person is like seeing myself do the thing that I dislike about myself. And I've figured out that whenever I'm in a group of people and someone is being annoying to me and nobody else seems to have any like the similar reaction, I try to think like, okay, why am I the only one who seems to be reacting? Is this, am I the and I don't really know the entire brain path from where how I end up on my thoughts, but I have the end result of that thought process, that because I often forget like how I end up on the answer of some stuff. And that is also why I'm trying to like explain all of this stuff, because it's very easy to forget the process of thinking and only thinking about the result of whatever you realized. And sometimes that result can be wrong, and it's kind of like math, trying to do like all the math problems in your head. If your teacher wants to see how you did it because you did it wrong, like they can't see what you did wrong, and they can't comment on like which part of the math equation you did wrong. But if you write it down, they can like point and say, okay, you did, this is where your mindset was wrong. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm kind of like writing down the math equation so my future self can look back at, or other, like random people on the internet, I guess, can look back at, like how did I see the world at this point, right? How did I think in this day? like in 10 years, I can look back and I can see the entire process of me trying to explain something that I've been thinking about for a little bit, right? Like seeing how I'm making the connections instead of just remembering the connection. Because the process is often way more important than the result. Because if you only think about results, you will never get the results, because the result is at the end of the process. And if you never focus on the process, you will never get the results. So if your brain is fixated on the result, you won't get it, because you won't be open to the process. That's a different topic for a different day. Um Remembering what I talked about 2 minutes ago. Oh, yikes. Or was it like 3 hours ago? I don't know. Could be. To me, time doesn't really pass correctly. I don't feel like, for example, an hour and a half, 1.5 hours has passed. I just feel like time. Like, I don't even feel like time has passed, right? When I look back, I'm not different. There's nothing really change. Like, nothing has really changed except for the windows getting brighter, the clock getting having a different number on it, this video having a different length. Like, there's no internal change. I don't feel like anything has changed, right? I can see from context from outside, like I can see the windows getting brighter, so I know that time has passed. But if there was no, like, if I sat in complete silence, I wouldn't have, like, a complete darkness, like a solitary confinement. I wouldn't have any idea of, like, 2 minutes could feel like 5 hours. 5 hours could feel like 2 minutes. Like, there would be no context, and since my brain has no context, it is kind of like walking around your house blindfolded without being able to touch anything, right? You need to, like, go blind, and you can't touch to make sure, like, you can't touch the desk to make sure that you're in the right place, right? You're just walking aimlessly through your house, blindfolded, and you just gotta have to trust that you um that you don't just walk into the wall. But often you end up walking into the wall, and that's why it's so helpful to have stuff like timers and alarms, because they are the things that you touch to get, like, the image in your head of, like, where you are. Like, if you try to close your eyes when you're in a car, not when you're driving, of course. I used to do this when I was little. I used to close my eyes and, like, try to feel the road of, like, okay, where am I now? And I tried to, like, feel the road. I was always off. Like, I would be so much further away from where I thought I was. Like, it's so weird, because the brain is pretty good at, like, predicting, like, movement. Like, you can like, predict where to put your hand to catch a ball before you've even perceived the ball coming towards you, right? You don't think where you put the ball, or you don't think where to put your hand. You put your hand before you've realized that the ball is on your way, right? It's subconscious. And like, I don't know, learning more about how to use the subconscious part of the brain instead of always relying on the conscious part, because the conscious part is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many things, like the filters that that neurotypical people have, compared, like, I've heard that one way, like I described this to my friend yesterday, of like people on the autism spectrum. One of the symptoms that or one of the common traits that uh, that I feel is there, or yeah, is the like our world is way less filtered. Like we have so many more details that we need to process, like every second of the day, than neurotypical people, because our filters are really different, and it can be devastating. Like it, me trying to walk outside and like being in a group of people and trying to speak at the same time, it can seem like I'm unable to form a sentence, right? It can seem like I am just really bad at talking, or I'm like really insecure, or like any other reason. But it's not that I'm not capable of speaking. It's more that the amount of brain power that that I have space, the amount of available brain power that I can dedicate to my uh, to like processing words and like saying words is way lower, because I my brain is filled up with like analyzing body language, like all of the people's body language, uh, their tone in voice, what they're meaning, like their clothes. They're trying to understand if I'm understanding them correctly, or trying to like uh, analyze the room as well, and like things that are changing, taking in every like movement. Like when somebody moves from one space to another, I am consciously aware of that person moving. I'm not sitting in a conversation and the only thing that I see is the person in front of me. I'm seeing everyone in the room, and I'm hearing everyone in the room. And whenever someone is talking, I hear that as well, and I need to consciously filter that out. And trying to do all of that, like fondling all those like fried rice pans, like frying so many pans of rice at the same time, it can be hard to like. Some people don't recognize that that might be like that's at least how I understand my in a like my lowered in a no my lowered ability to speak more fluent. Like even now when I'm stuttering, I'm not stuttering because I'm bad at talking. It's that I'm having more thoughts in my head, and I'm analyzing so many timelines of like thoughts. Like I'm not just thinking what I'm saying. I'm thinking about the context, and I'm like I'm making visuals for what I'm saying, and I'm making like the scenario in my head, and I'm like playing out the scenario, and I'm looking like when I'm talking when I'm saying like uh I'm sitting in a group, I'm seeing all those people in my head, and I'm seeing like the situation, I'm seeing the location, I'm seeing the vibe, I'm seeing the like I'm not just saying words, I'm also processing so much stuff in the background that nobody else, like people who don't understand people on the autism spectrum, has a hard time understanding that. And I believe that people who are like I don't know many autistic people, so all of this has been from like the few people that I've met that also are on the spectrum. At least people who are open about being on the spectrum, and people who are actually diagnosed, because some people aren't diagnosed. Various reasons for that. I'm not going to say it's a good or a bad thing. There are various reasons for not getting, or yeah, the reasons for those things. And I'm not going to get into that right now, because I think I only have like 30 minutes before my phone like fills up again, because the space is kind of like at max. But yeah, uh, people like non-verbal autistic people, I believe that it's not that they're too stupid to speak. Like some people think like, oh my god, those like people on the autism spectrum, they are too stupid to speak correctly, right? They have speech impediments, and that makes them stupid, or autism is making them dumb or whatever. But I think it's more that the amount of unfiltered information that someone has to process, like someone who is nonverbal, is so great, like it's so much, like constantly, that they don't have space in their head for um for speaking, right? They don't have space to communicate correctly, because the amount of uh, things that they might see that none of, like, you might, like, if you're not on the spectrum, you might not relate to very much, or you might relate to some things, or you might think that you relate to some things in a certain way, but you might not, like, you wouldn't know if you misunderstand me, right? You would only, you would hear what I'm saying, and you, like, what you hear is, and what you believe I'm saying is what I'm saying to you, basically, right? You, whatever you think I'm saying is what I'm saying to you, and you wouldn't, unless you question it, like, what did he actually mean? If you think like, okay, that's what he means, like, if I say something and you, if you take it in the wrong way, or if you understand it, if you don't understand it in the way that I am trying to make you understand it, you wouldn't know unless you were skeptical about what I'm saying, and like questioning it yourself. And that's kind of important, like being skeptical and asking yourself, like, what is this person actually saying? Like, what do they actually mean with this information? Instead of like, okay, that's what they mean at face value, and like there's nothing more deeper to it, like there's no more thought needed to be done. This person said what they needed to say, and I don't need to think anymore about this, because if they meant it a different way, they would have said it a different way. Like sometimes people say stuff in ways that are less efficient, or like less correct-ish, like in air quotes, like correct. So it's often very handy to second guess stuff, even stuff that seem like well, I second guess everything because I see the world less filtered, I think, or from how I how I understand how people can like speak without having to think of all of like the body language of everyone in the room, and like thinking about, okay, I've talked with this person for this amount, okay, I need to turn to this person so they feel included. Okay, this person walked in, I need to do I need to incorporate them into the conversation? And I'm thinking that as I'm thinking of what I'm needing to say, and I'm thinking of what my body language is, my tone is, and like the my clothes, how they feel on my body, and how the thing I'm sitting on, how, like, if I'm sitting on a chair, like I'm feeling like the how the chair feels on my skin, and all of this is happening at the same time. This is not like after one another, this is at the same time, and this is not all of it either. This is like a small portion that I can remember from certain things. So when it sounds like I'm, like, for example, right now I'm pausing, and it's not because I'm stupid, and well, it might be that I'm stupid, but I think thinking of people as stupid or dumb for doing stuff in ways that you don't understand is dumb itself, or is ignorant in itself, because you're like you're locking yourself out from understanding people, because you're giving them the label of they're stupid, I'm correct, or whatever. And they they are dumb because they can't do this thing that I am able to do, and I'm very smart, because people like feeling smart, right? And when they see someone who can't do the things that they can't do, normally they've been like told or normally they might feel like they're dumb, and then when they see someone who does something that they can do, when someone sees someone not being able to do something that they for once can do, they're like, oh my god, I feel so smart about myself, and now because I feel so bad about myself normally, I'm gonna make that person feel bad, because that's how they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to feel now, because I feel bad when I do those things, therefore I'm gonna put that bad feeling on those people as well, because it's just a circle of unhappiness, I guess. But yeah, thinking of people as dumb for not being able to do that is ignorant, and ignorance is bliss, I guess. And yeah, I can't really fault someone for choosing to stay ignorant. There are definitely so many things that I'm choosing, like I'm consciously choosing to stay ignorant of, like for the moment. And I'm realizing, like I can see the benefit of pushing through it, but I can also see that if I push through everything, when I see that, oh, I could push through this, it doesn't mean that I'm ready to take in that information. Like if I walk around and like take in everything and try to like anytime I see me trying to avoid something, like if I take everything like that and say like, no, I'm not gonna avoid my problems, I'm gonna face all of my problems head on, like I wouldn't have enough energy in my brain to tackle all of the problems at once, so I need to prioritize what's more important. Like, is it more important that I focus on my ability to like make or to use the hair curves in Blender, or is it more important to prioritize my uh, my like getting over my fear of getting like a new job, right? Those two are very different uh, levels of importance. And if I were to spend my energy on learning hair curves, or using hair curves, and like I would have a higher chance of avoiding getting over my fear of like getting a new job and like learning to fit in into like a thing where they might push me to the ground like the other place. They might actually be my next like savior of whatever. Like they might give me a sense of belonging that I could never feel anywhere else. And they could also do nothing to me. Like it could, there's so much, and so prioritizing, and like even though you can see a problem and you're aware of the problem and its outcome or its effects on you, you can choose, like being comfortable with choosing that, okay, I'm gonna stay ignorant of this because I have other more pressing matters, and I'm not gonna be upset that I'm putting this off, because it's not purely procrastination. I'm not. Sometimes it is procrastination. Often it's procrastination, but sometimes it is uh, like choosing to divert your attention, or to focus your attention on where you feel is the most important to you, and other people can have other opinions of where uh, like of what is more important, but they don't have the perspective that you have. They haven't walked through the entire uh, playthrough that is your life, right? They don't know every single thought that you have ever had, and like every experience that you've had. They might have similar experiences and similar like issues or like things they need to fix, but they might need a completely different way and a different time or a different mindset to complete the same task, right? They might need to they might be older than you and might have, like, for example, they might be older than you and still have the problem, and like age does not mean like age. I feel like age is kind of looked at as like a variable that makes a lot of things supposed to be easier. Like people saying like, oh, when you grow up it will be easier to like be happy and stuff, or like be satisfied with yourself. But that isn't, I don't see those as connected. I see age as disconnected from like wisdom. I see age disconnected from happiness. I see age so like age is so disconnected from so many variables that, but I feel like a lot of people see age as like the thing that will make them better at this. Like when I get older, I'm gonna get better at this. When I get older, I'm gonna get more money because I'm gonna have more money. But it's more, I feel like perspective and experience and perseverance, I guess. Is it rover, Mars rover? Wow, you need Mars rover to get wisdom. If you don't have a Mars rover, you're never gonna become wise. Now, I see wisdom as a like exploring perspectives and experiencing things and like listening to other people and drawing connections where some people like many people don't draw connections, like spending that extra energy, because all of the thinking that I do, all of the reflection that I do, to many people it might seem completely wasted and like completely wasted energy, but the energy that I spend on reflecting, I would spend that anyway. Like that's just my baseline brain uh, conscious experience. Like I spend so much energy trying to, no, not trying to, I spend so much energy uh experiencing everything around me that whenever I do end up, like, I love sitting alone in a room, like a quiet room, not listening to music, just listening to my thoughts on blast. Like they go so loud and they repeat so many times. Like I've had the same train of thought. Like it's not just one continuous train of thought, it's just a loop. Like the same exact same words being said for hours at a time. Like I've sat at my on my couch, like using Blender and stuff, or like being creative, and when I'm in flow, well, like when I'm have like when I achieve flow state, the thoughts that I get, it's it's not that I um it's not that I start having more thoughts. It's more that my brain has less input, and then it has more space to process everything. And in normal situations where I'm like bombarded by stimulation, my brain, like I don't have space to reflect as much, which makes it which has made it like a problem earlier. Why I'm always it is why I'm making such a huge deal out of me reflecting. Like, I know it's a human thing, like reflecting, but I've not had much opportunity to fully endure it, or I've had distractions, like constant distractions, like for example watching YouTube and stuff, and I have problems with like focusing on videos because I zone out and I start reflecting if the video is boring, or if they start talking about something and then they like I might hook onto one word that they're saying and they might continue the video and like whatever they do, and I'm not listening to the video. I'm thinking about stuff, or thinking about the word that they said that one time, or the way they said it, or the one thing that I noticed about the animation or whatever, right? Like, whenever I'm in flow state and I'm working, the reason I have so much the reason I'm reflecting that much is because my brain is constantly at the speed that it is, basically. And when I take away all the stimulation, it opens so many more pathways. It's like when you get blind, your ears get more adept, right? You can people who go blind, they can see with sound, right? Some people can see with I don't know if that's everyone. I'm generalizing, just like everyone who says like, oh yeah, people on the autism spectrum are this way, because I know that one person who was autistic and they were this way, so therefore everyone on the autism spectrum, it's not even a spectrum, it's just this one guy that I knew from school way long ago, that I've never talked with, but I've seen from a distance or whatever. Like, yeah, yeah, the brain is it's very adaptable, but I don't think it's the fact that your brain changes, uh, like when you go blind and you no longer have that stream of information, your brain doesn't operate at a lower pace. It operates at the same pace, but you have less information from other, like you have less informations from no you have less sources of information, and so you're able to tap into more details in the perception that you have, right? You can, instead of because you don't need the echolocation features when you have sight, right? You don't need to see with sound when you have constant like vision, when you have perfect vision. You don't need, your brain doesn't need to give you that feed of information, or you don't need to process that stuff. But when you lose your eyes, it's not that you suddenly gain the ability to hear or see with sound. It's that you're given the um you're given the information that normally was filtered out, because it was your brain considered it useless. It wasn't useful for your brain. It's kind of like you're seeing the world through a JPEG image, and your eyes, no, your entire experience, or no, your entire body, every input, and like everything happening in your body and outside your body, like any perception, it's kind of like taking a picture, like a raw picture with like a DSLR, or like 8K footage from like a 360 camera, like a cinema camera with like 360 view, right? You're taking in all that information, but only some parts of the image, right? Like, you don't need every part of the image, and you don't need everything to be focused, like in focus, like super clear, like 16K detail, and you don't need the audio to be like lossless, like uh, whatever, and you don't need to know like the atoms inside every object that you see. You generalize because like your conscious brain gets a dumbed down version of the world from your subconscious brain, is how I'm understanding this, and that's how kind of I'm thinking of the brain. Like your subconscious brain is like taking in so much information, and it's like working like it is so good at filtering out stuff that you don't notice stuff. Like the first time I picked up a saxophone, right, I didn't notice even like I noticed the few keys with like the gemstones on it, like the opal or whatever, the fake opal, like the acrylic looking like an opal, yeah, whatever. Like I didn't notice the valves, I didn't notice um the screws. I saw it as a saxophone, right? It was one object, a saxophone. But when you like, the more you look at it, like look at the saxophone and like think about it or reflect on it and just stare at it, you will notice more and more details, but your brain naturally filters those details out. And trying to learn something new, you're trying to convince, or this is what I'm thinking learning is, you're trying to convince your brain from unfiltering certain information, right? when you're when you're learning to draw and you're trying to get better like motor skills for your hand, you're not as you're not just learning the to get intuition, you're also learning, you're telling your brain to remove certain stuff from the blacklist filter, like what it filters away from your conscious experience. So you can like you're telling it like, oh, I want to get access to this information, can I get access to this? And you need to convince your brain by doing it many times. You don't ask your brain one time and like, oh yeah, sure, hey, here you go. You ask your brain several times, and then you convince it after enough times, like, okay, I need to, because you're not telling your brain like, oh, I need this information. You're showing your brain that I need this information because I'm using it over and over again, and therefore, can you stop blocking it out, because this is actually useful for my conscious experience. And it goes like, yeah, okay, yeah, I see you need this information to learn this. And then you kind of learn, you learn it. You're unaware of the variable, like for example the pressure of how hard you press on the with a pencil or a pen or whatever. Like that is one variable, like the pressure. And when you're a child, you might draw like one constant hardness, like the hardest you can. But the more you learn, the more you realize like, oh shit, okay, it's actually a variable. It's not a boolean. It's not either I'm pressing hard onto the paper and like drawing, or I'm having it off the paper, and those are the only two states. You realize like there's a variable that's a float, kind of. That's a number with a like with digits, right? Like 2.7, that's a float. But an integer is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not, an integer is not 1.4. That's a float. And a boolean is 1 or 0. It's yes or no, basically, for those who don't know. And going from like when you learn something, it's first you don't see the variable, and then you see it as a boolean, like you need to do this and you don't need to do this, or you need to do this, you need to do this and you also don't need to do this, or something like that. Like for example, you need to put the pencil into the paper, you need to like make contact with the paper, with the pencil and paper needs to contact each other, and it might cut out soon. Okay, yeah, you need to make contact with the paper, and then the more you learn about it, the more you realize like, oh, it's not just a contact with to draw, I need to have contact with the thing. You start to see like, okay, if I change the pressure, okay, then the strength of the line changes, and there are like outcomes of that variable changing, and like trying out that variable, like stress testing that variable, that one variable, is a lot more, it will make it more intuitive than trying to do everything, like trying to learn perspective, trying to learn color theory and like human proportions and stuff, all of that stuff at the same time. Like all of those, the things that I listed, they're not just one variable, like pressures, like the amount of pressure you put the pencil on, because you can always break down into even smaller groups. Like even the pressure on the paper, it's not just the pressure, it's how you use your muscles in your arm to achieve that pressure, and that's the pressure is the result of those muscles. And you could see you could in the start, like you could see it's kind of like a you could draw like a line backwards to or from a thing, like for example the strength of a line, like the hardness of a line is driven by your the force that you push it into the force you push it with into the paper, and the force you push it into the paper is